The unexpected lesson Vega had always considered himself a dedicated student, eager to learn everything about the different species of the galaxy. When he and his fellow students from the Komar Empire were assigned an observational mission to Earth, they expected to study a primitive species with little to offer beyond curiosity. However, what they found was far from what they had anticipated. As they landed discreetly on Earth, disguised by their advanced holographic technology, the students began their observations. They chose a bustling human city, hoping to capture the essence of human life in its most vibrant form. They watched silently as humans went about their daily routines, seemingly unaware of the alien eyes studying their every move. But it was one particular incident that shattered their preconceived notions and left them questioning everything they had been taught. A group of human children played in a park, laughing and chasing each other without a care in the world. Among them was a young boy, no older than 7, who suddenly found himself in the clutches of a menacing figure, a kidnapper who had been preying on vulnerable children in the area. The scene unfolded rapidly. The child's father, who had been sitting on a nearby bench, leaped into action with a ferocity that stunned the alien observers. He tackled the kidnapper to the ground, ignoring the man's weapon and his own safety. Bloodied and battered, the father cradled his son in his arms, tears streaming down his face as he held the boy close. Vega zoomed in on the scene, his neural translator implant deciphering the words exchanged between the father and his son. The raw emotion in the man's voice was unmistakable. Love, fear, relief, all intertwined in a moment of profound human connection. On Komar, children were seen as property of the state, tools to serve the collective. The idea of a parent risking their life for their offspring was unthinkable. Vega's gaze darted to his fellow students, hidden in the gathering crowd. Shock and confusion were evident on their disguised faces. They had come to Earth expecting primitive barbarians, but instead, Vega now questioned the very foundations of his own supposedly enlightened society. If humans were willing to die for their young, what other powers were hidden within their fleshy, illogical forms? A cold tingle ran down Vega's spine as an unsettling realization took hold. If humanity ever turned this potent loyalty and cooperation outward, toward the stars and beyond, the Komar didn't stand a chance. Everything was about to change. The cracks in Komar's society, the alien students followed the human father, Gary, and his son, Jake, at a discreet distance. Their holographic disguises allowed them to blend seamlessly into the crowded city streets. But the weight of what they had witnessed lingered heavily in their minds. Vega kept his gaze locked on the father-son pair, still trying to process the raw emotion he had witnessed. The wounds on Gary's body seemed to throb with each step, a testament to the lengths he would go for his child. At the hospital, the Komar watched in fascination as a flurry of activity erupted around Gary. Nurses rushed to assess his injuries while doctors barked orders. Through it all, Jake remained glued to his father's side, his small hands clutching at Gary's bloodied shirt. An elderly man in a faded military uniform approached Gary's bedside. He clasped the young father's hand in a firm grip, eyes shining with unshed tears. Vega listened, a sharp ache blossoming in his chest as the man spoke. On Komar, the very concept of a parent-child bond was alien. Sacrifice was unthinkable, yet here among these humans, it seemed as natural as breathing. Xander, another Komar student, snorted. "Don't be fooled by sentiment," he cautioned. "This love they cling to is a weakness. It breeds irrational behavior, clouds logic. In the end, it will destroy them." But Vega barely heard his classmates' debate. His mind reeled as he watched a police inspector question Gary, thanking him for ending weeks of terror. The kidnapper had been preying on children, the officer said, abducting the innocent. Bile rose in Vega's throat. On Komar, children were commodities, cogs in the machine of progress. If one was taken, the collective would simply make more. Yet humans cherished their young. They would bleed for them, kill for them, perhaps even start wars for them. With each clench of Gary's protective embrace, with every glimmer of defiant love in these humans' eyes, Vega felt the first cracks splinter through the foundations of everything he knew. A treacherous whisper echoed in his skull. What if we've been wrong all along? A new perspective. Back on their ship, the alien students gathered in a secure meeting room, their expressions a mixture of confusion and determination. The footage of Gary's heroic actions played on a loop, casting a pale light across their faces. "I still can't believe what we witnessed," Zara said, her holographic disguise flickering as she paced the deck. "The way that father risked everything for his child, it defies all logic." Xander leaned against a control panel, arms crossed. "Perhaps their emotions make them unstable, unpredictable." "No," Vega interjected, his voice firm. "What we saw wasn't instability, it was strength." He activated a holographic display, projecting images of the humans they'd observed. "Look at this footage. A mother running into a burning building to save her children, soldiers shielding civilians with their own bodies. The other students crowded around, their eyes wide as they absorbed scene after scene of human selflessness and courage. This changes everything," Vega continued. "We've been taught that our way is superior, but what if we're wrong? What if there's a better path?" A heated debate erupted, voices rising as the students argued the merits and dangers of embracing human values. Zara sided with Vega, while others like Xander remained skeptical. "Even if you're right," one student hissed, "speaking of such things could get us exiled to Zon 5. The regime doesn't tolerate dissent." The ship's door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, cutting off all conversation. Commander Zorg strode in, his imposing frame filling the doorway. "Why haven't you departed?" he demanded, eyes narrowing suspiciously. Vega stepped forward, thinking quickly. "Commander, we've made a fascinating discovery about human behavior. We need more time to gather data before presenting our findings to the Science Council." Zorg's tentacles twitched with impatience. "You have one planetary rotation, no more." The decision. The next morning, Vega found himself trailing Gary as the man returned to work at the factory. Despite his bandages and visible discomfort, Gary moved with purpose, greeting his co-workers with a tired smile. "Welcome back, hero," a burly man called out, clapping Gary on the shoulder. Others gathered around, offering words of support and admiration. Across town, Zara observed May dropping Jake off at school. She marveled at the colorful classroom, so different from the sterile learning pods of Komar. Children laughed and played, their imaginations encouraged rather than stifled. "I love you, sweetie," May said, hugging Jake tightly. "Have a great day." "Love you too, Mom," Jake replied, his small arms wrapped around her neck. That evening, the students reconvened, buzzing with excitement as they shared their observations. Even Xander seemed moved by what he'd seen. After hours of intense discussion, Zara and Xander made their decision. "We're staying too," Zara announced. "We can't let you do this alone." As the rest of the students prepared to depart, promising to keep their secret, Vega, Zara, and Xander stood at the ship's viewport. They watched the twinkling lights of the human city below, each lost in thought about the monumental task that lay ahead. The beginning of the end days. The city lights twinkled below. Vega, Zara, and Xander exchanged determined glances. Their mission had evolved far beyond their original directives. With a few taps on his wrist computer, Vega initiated the fabrication protocols. Within hours, they had Earth identities, basic currency, and rudimentary living arrangements. The first weeks were a whirlwind of sensory overload and cultural confusion. Vega found himself scrubbing floors at a local high school, the harsh chemicals assaulting his sensitive olfactory organs. He watched teenagers navigate complex social hierarchies, their emotions on full display. At the grocery store, Zara fumbled with unfamiliar currency and earth foods. A patient elderly woman guided her through using the self-checkout, smiling warmly. "We all have to start somewhere, dear," she said, patting Zara's hand. The simple act of kindness left Zara speechless. Xander's powerful Komar physiology made construction work almost effortless, but the camaraderie of his human co-workers baffled him. They shared meals, told jokes, and looked out for each other's safety with genuine concern. As autumn turned to winter, the trio delved deeper into human society. Vega volunteered at a children's hospital, watching parents cradle sick infants with fierce protectiveness. He saw Gary bring Jake for a checkup, the bond between them palpable. Zara found herself drawn to the local library, poring over books on art, history, and philosophy. She attended a community theater production, tears streaming down her face at the raw emotion conveyed on stage. Xander joined a gym, fascinated by humans pushing their physical limits. He struck up a friendship with Frank, the war veteran they'd met at the hospital. Over protein shakes, Frank shared stories of sacrifice and brotherhood that left Xander questioning everything he'd been taught about human nature. The choice one crisp spring morning, the three aliens met in their shared apartment, each transformed by their experiences. "I can't believe how wrong we were," Zara said softly, cradling a mug of coffee, a human habit she'd grown to love. Vega nodded, his eyes distant. "The Komar way. It's empty, hollow. These humans, they live with such intensity, such purpose." A knock at the door silenced them. Heart racing, Vega opened it to find a stern-faced woman flanked by two men. Between training sessions, they underwent intensive ideological instruction. Human tutors lectured on Earth's long history of revolution and resistance. The American colonists threw off the yoke of British tyranny, one instructor explained. The French toppled their monarchy. Cubans overthrew a dictator. Time and again, the human spirit has risen up against oppression. Vega found himself captivated by these tales of defiance. Late one night, he began furiously writing, distilling everything he'd learned about freedom and equality into a powerful manifesto. As their training intensified, the trio took on new identities. Vega became Mathas, a fiery revolutionary. Zara adopted the name Svetlana, while Xander transformed into the stoic Mael. "This is our chance to reach Xenos Prime directly," Dietrich explained as they prepared to launch. One broadcast to expose the regime's lies. Mathas clutched a data crystal containing his manifesto as Svetlana hacked into the facility's systems. He felt the weight of two worlds on his shoulders, but their victory was short-lived. Reports flooded in of brutal crackdowns on Xenos Prime. Thousands of newly awakened minds snuffed out by the regime's iron fist. Svetlana's anguished cry echoed through the rebel base as news arrived of her family's execution. Mathas held her, his own grief mingling with hers. In the command center, Dietrich outlined their next move. "We've lit the spark. Now we take the fight directly to Xenos Prime." Mathas nodded grimly, his manifesto's words echoing in his mind as they boarded the stealth ship that would carry them across the stars. He knew their true battle was only beginning. The final battle begins. The stealth ship's engines hummed as it cut through the cold vacuum of space, its cloaking technology rendering it nearly invisible to the Komar regime's sensors. Mathas, Svetlana, and Mael sat in the cramped cockpit, their eyes fixed on the swirling atmosphere of Xenos Prime, their destination and the heart of the regime they had once served. "Approaching target," Svetlana reported, her fingers dancing over the control panel. "Activating decoy protocols. We should be able to slip past their defenses undetected." Mathas nodded, his mind racing with the weight of their mission. They were no longer just students observing an alien species. They were now revolutionaries, fighting for the freedom of their people and the protection of a species they had once underestimated. As they entered Xenos Prime's atmosphere, the ship jolted violently and alarms blared. "Incoming fire," Mael barked, his hands gripping the controls as he maneuvered the ship to evade the barrage of anti-aircraft missiles. "They must have detected our energy signature," Svetlana said, her voice tense. "We're going to have to land manually. Brace yourselves." The ship lurched as it descended rapidly toward the planet's surface, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. With a thunderous crash, they landed in a desolate area just outside the capital city. Mathas unbuckled his harness and stood, his legs trembling slightly from the rough landing. "We're here. Let's move." The trio quickly exited the ship, taking in their surroundings. The landscape was barren, a stark contrast to the vibrant cities of Earth. In the distance, the towering spires of the capital loomed, a symbol of the oppressive regime they were about to challenge. "We need to make our way to the central broadcast tower," Mathis said, checking the coordinates on his wrist computer. "Once we upload the manifesto and the footage, it'll be broadcast across the planet, and hopefully beyond." They moved swiftly and silently through the deserted outskirts, avoiding patrols and surveillance drones. Every step brought them closer to the heart of the regime's power, and the weight of their mission pressed down on them like a physical force. Finally, they reached the edge of the city. The streets were eerily quiet, the only sound the faint hum of machinery and the occasional echo of distant voices. Mathis led them through narrow alleys, relying on the map Frank had provided them during their training on Earth. "There," Mathis whispered, pointing to a tall, heavily fortified building in the distance.
"That's the broadcast tower."
"We need to get inside." Svetlana nodded, her expression determined. "I've got the access codes. If we can get close enough to the main terminal, I can override their security and upload the data." Mail scanned the area, his sharp eyes picking up movement near the tower's entrance.
"Guards."
Heavily armed. Mathis clenched his jaw. "We'll have to create a distraction." "Svetlana, can you handle the upload alone?" "I can do it," she replied confidently. "Just give me enough time." Mathis turned to Mael.
"We'll draw the guards away."
"Give her the window she needs." They synchronized their movements, each aware of the high stakes. With a quick nod, Mathis and Mael split off, heading toward the guards while Svetlana slipped around the side of the building. The two approached the guards cautiously. When they were close enough, Mathis signaled Mael, who launched a small explosive device toward the entrance. It detonated with a deafening bang, sending debris flying and drawing the guards' attention. "Now," Mathis shouted, as he and Mael opened fire on the remaining guards. The fight was brief, but intense, with the two aliens using their enhanced reflexes and strength to overpower their opponents. Meanwhile, Svetlana reached the main terminal inside the tower. Her heart pounded as she worked quickly, bypassing firewalls and encryptions, her hands moving with practiced ease. As the data began to upload, she glanced nervously at the timer on the screen. 2 minutes until complete transmission. Come on," she muttered, her fingers flying over the keys. Outside, Mathis and Mael continued to fend off waves of guards. The situation was growing more desperate by the second. Mathis could feel the exhaustion setting in, but he pushed it aside, knowing that failure was not an option. "Svetlana, status?" Mathis called over the comm. "Almost there," she responded, her voice tense. "Just a few more seconds." Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the building, and Mathis turned just in time to see a squad of Komar enforcers advancing on their position, armed with heavy weapons. "Svetlana, hurry!" Mael shouted as he laid down suppressive fire, buying them a few precious moments. Inside, the upload completed with a soft chime, and Svetlana exhaled in relief. "It's done!" But just as she was about to disconnect, the terminal screen flashed red with an urgent warning, "Unauthorized upload detected."
"Purge in progress, no!"
Svetlana cried, frantically trying to stop the purge, but it was too late. The data was being systematically erased, and the terminal was locking down. "Get out of there!" Mathis ordered. "Now!" Svetlana grabbed the data crystal containing the original copy of the manifesto and bolted for the exit. Outside, the battle was raging, and Mathis and Mael were barely holding the line. Svetlana reached them just as reinforcements arrived, outnumbering them and closing in fast. "We're surrounded," Mael growled, firing another burst of energy rounds. Mathis clenched his jaw, his mind racing for a way out. They had come too far to fail now. "We need to get to the ship," Mathis said, looking at the odds stacked against them.
"It's our only chance."
The three of them made a break for it, fighting their way through the enemy lines with everything they had. The ship was in sight, but the Komar forces were closing in from all sides. As they reached the ship, Mathis turned to Svetlana.
"Get in!"
"I'll cover you." Svetlana hesitated for a split second, but the urgency in Mathis's voice propelled her forward. She scrambled into the cockpit and started the launch sequence as Mael and Mathis continued to hold off the attackers. "Mathis!" Mael shouted as the last of their energy clips ran dry. We can't hold them much longer. Mathis knew he was right.
Get on board, Merrill!
I'll follow you. But as Mile turned to run for the ship, a powerful blast struck him in the back, sending him crashing to the ground. Mathis's heart sank as he saw his friend fall, but there was no time to grieve. With the last of his strength, Mathis dragged Mile's limp form into the ship and collapsed beside him.
Go, Svetlana!
Go! The ship's engines roared to life and they shot into the sky, leaving the chaos behind. Mathis lay on the floor, breathing heavily, blood oozing from a wound on his side. "Did we get it?" he asked weakly, his vision blurring. Svetlana glanced back at him, her face pale. "The original is safe, but they wiped the broadcast. We didn't reach the planet." Mathis closed his eyes, the weight of the failure pressing down on him like a ton of bricks. But he knew there was still a chance, as long as they had the original manifesto.